Mosaic, a daily news program from Link TV, presents a selection of news reports from independent and state-controlled broadcasters from throughout the Middle East.
صرح مصدر أمني مسؤول أن دائرة المخابرات العامة قد تمكنت بتوفيق الله تعالى من إحباط مخطط إرهابي. كانت مجموعة إرهابية.
A security source said that the General Intelligence Agency, with God's help, was able to foil a terrorist plot by a group of terrorists belonging to the Al-Qaeda organization. The suspects, who held Iraqi, Libyan, and Saudi citizenships, planned a suicide operation that targeted one of Jordan's vital civilian institutions. The source said that the General Intelligence Agency found 4 kilograms of high explosives, which are the same type that was found with the terrorist Sajid al-Rishawi, who with other terrorists carried out the suicide operations at 3 hotels in Amman last November. The source said that the General Intelligence Agency, through intense monitoring and detailed surveillance of the members of the terrorist cell, arrested the members who were planning to carry out the suicide operation. They arrested Mohammed Saeed Hamad Ghaith al-Darsi, a Libyan national born in 1981. They also arrested 2 logistical supporters of the terrorist cell who were tasked to facilitate the operation in Jordan. They are both Iraqis, Mohsen Mazloum Jassim al-Wissi, born in Baghdad in 1972, and Abdul Karim Akhbar Ibrahim Abbas al-Jumaidi, born in Baghdad in 1958. The source added that the General Intelligence Agency is currently pursuing other members of this terrorist cell who participated in planning this criminal operation and currently are in one of the neighboring countries. Their names are Turki Nasser Abdullah, a 25-year-old Saudi citizen known as Abi Abbas, Saeed Fawzi Hakim Muhaddin al-Abaidi, an Iraqi born in 1973, also known as Abi Zubair, Yusuf Abdul Rahman al-Abaidi, an Iraqi known as Abi Batul, and Saad Fakhri Yunus Naimi, an Iraqi born in 1966, known as Abi Anas. The source revealed that at the beginning of the year 2006, the General Intelligence Agency, with the support and guidance of Commander-in-Chief King Abdullah II, was able to foil a number of terrorist plots that targeted the lives and security of citizens in order to undermine Jordanian security and stability. During security operations, the authorities found automatic weapons, explosives, and RPG missiles belonging to members of terrorist organizations in neighboring countries. The source indicated that the terrorists linked to these acts have been transferred to a national security court to undergo legal procedures.
وأشار إلى أن الإرهابيين المتورطين في هذه العمليات قد تم تحويلهم إلى محكمة أمن الدولة لإجراء المقتضى القانوني بحقهم.
The riots that were carried out by a number of prisoners at the Rehabilitation and Reformation Center in Al-Jawada, Al-Suwayga, and Al-Gafga have ended after the last 3 security officials who were taken hostage were finally released. The security agency dealt with this crisis using civil methods and was able to resolve the problem without the use of weapons.
After 13 hours of negotiations, the Juwaida Rehabilitation and Reformation Center crisis ended peacefully. The rioters have been convicted of carrying out operations threatening the country's national security. The method of dialogue and negotiations and not resorting to force or bloodshed resulted in the release of all security officials who were taken hostage. The atmosphere inside the Juwaida Center returned to normal like the other rehabilitation centers.
Right now, things are back to normal. Security is restored. We are relieved. Thank God. Yesterday, we were living in a state of fear over what happened. Thank God. The security officials were able to control the area, and they are able to protect everything. Most importantly, they protected people's lives. Thank God. We are comfortable, and there is nothing else wrong.
The situation is good. Everyone has 2 blankets. The food is good. One day we eat meat and the other day we have chicken. The store at the center has everything. Everything you find outside you can find inside. The clinic is also good. No matter what problem you have, they will never turn you down. They will help you and give you medical treatment. The clothing is provided. Those who don't have money to provide clothes get help. The treatment is very good. There can't be better treatment.
Those who carried out the riots are not in jail for political reasons, but they are criminals, some of whom have been sentenced to death and some of whom were detained for criminal violations.
There are three factors that caused this incident that have to do with the nature of this group of rioters. First, the rioters are highly coordinated because they all belong to one organization or similar organizations, which makes it easier for them to coordinate their efforts. Secondly, the charges against them are very severe because of the nature of their dangerous crimes, some of whom are sentenced to death or life in prison. So they have little hope of getting out of prison, which explains why they got involved in such actions. Third, it has to do with the conditions inside the prison, especially whether they are allowed to stay together or in separate centers. All these factors contributed to this incident.
وكانت أعمال الفوضى والشغب وقعت صباح اليوم عند الساعة 3 فجرا في 3 مراكز إصلاح وتأهيل.
The riots took place at 3 a.m. this morning at 3 rehabilitation centers, Al-Jihad, Al-Gafka, and Al-Sawga, injuring a number of security men and police with light injuries to their arms and legs. A number of prisoners were also hurt, but their injuries were not as severe and they were transferred to hospitals to be treated. The security agency efforts were destined to succeed without resulting in any deaths because they used dialogue and negotiations with the prisoners.
مع النزلاء فيصل بصبوص التلفزيون الأردني من أمام مركز إصلاح وتأهيل الجويدة.
According to a Jordanian security source, a riot has erupted in the Al-Qaeda prison south of Amman. The source also confirmed that the Jordanian security forces have contained the situation and freed all of the hostages. A team of negotiators were held hostage by the prisoners. There have been no reports of casualties.
According to the spokesman of the Jordanian Department of Public Security, a riot has indeed erupted in Al-Qaeda prison.
We in the Jordanian Department of Public Security were informed that a riot has erupted in the Al-Qaeda Rehabilitation and Reformation Center yesterday.
The spokesman added that the riot was carried out by a number of political prisoners and those sentenced to death. They demanded that all charged and convicted political prisoners must be housed in the same prison and separate from other criminal inmates. A police negotiating team was taken hostage by the rioters after Jordanian officials refused to meet prisoners' demands. The Jordanian security forces took necessary measures and freed some of the hostages.
Reports by news media and satellite outlets that there have been casualties are baseless and inaccurate. We have dealt with this issue in a civilized and peaceful manner. There are still a number of hostages held by the prisoners.
In a later report, Dr. Jamal Damour, a Jordanian parliament member and head of the Freedom Committee, has confirmed that the rest of the hostages were released as a result of the negotiations. He also explained that prisoners' demands are illegitimate and illogical.
كان لهم مطلب يتمثل بأنه كافة هؤلاء الأشخاص من كافة التيارات الذين يتفقون ويلتقون معه بنفس الأهداف والمبادئ.
The prisoners have demanded that all inmates with the same ideologies and principles must be housed in the same jail in Jordan. They rebelled against prison guards and administrators, and they did not adhere to rational, reasonable, and constructive negotiations. They held a number of security officials hostage. Today, we have freed all individuals and security captains who were held hostage by the rioters.
تم تحرير كافة الضباط والأفراد الذين كانوا محتجزين لديهم.
According to the Jordanian Department of Public Security, there are 100 indicted and convicted political prisoners distributed throughout 5 Jordanian prisons. Most of them are held in Al-Qaeda prison.
The Israeli occupation forces have assassinated Khalid al-Dahdu, a leader from the Jerusalem Brigades, the military wing of the Islamic Jihad in Gaza. The Islamic group vowed to retaliate against the occupation forces.
Israel had threatened to eliminate Mr. al-Dahduh, and it did. The Israeli occupation forces have assassinated Mr. Khalid al-Dahduh, one of the most prominent leaders of the Jerusalem Brigades, the military wing of the Islamic Jihad. An Israeli surveillance warplane fired a missile, hitting al-Dahduh's car, killing him instantly south of Gaza.
This is a grisly crime against the Palestinian people and against one of the most prominent leaders of the Jerusalem Brigades in Gaza, Khalid al-Dahduh, known as Abu al-Walid. We hold the Israeli enemy responsible for this heinous crime, and we will respond to it.
The Jerusalem Brigades, whose leadership faces a wave of threats, has confirmed that the Israeli aggressions against the Palestinians will be swiftly responded to. Other Palestinian factions have vowed to retaliate against al-Dahduh's assassination as well, vowing that they will not let Israeli candidates gain political support ahead of the elections by spilling Palestinian blood.
We will not allow the Israeli occupation to spill Palestinian blood for political reasons. Our blood will not be part of an election campaign or an ad for Israeli candidates competing for power in the occupation government. As long as our people in Palestine are targeted, the Israeli occupation will not be safe.
These bloody messages of death and destruction by Israel will turn into a nightmare. The corpse of this martyr will be transformed into a ghost, chasing the occupiers anywhere in the beloved Palestinian land.
Meanwhile, the Hamas movement condemned the assassination and said that different Palestinian factions will respond to this operation.
Without a doubt, we condemn these blatant aggressions against the Palestinian people, and God willing, the different Palestinian resistance factions will respond to these Israeli crimes.
The Israeli government has dramatically intensified its arrest campaigns, shellings, and assassinations to serve the election's agendas and to create panic in the Palestinian society and weaken it by eliminating resistance leaders.
The European Union has confirmed that it will forward $148 million as an urgent financial aid package to the Palestinian Authority prior to the formation of Hamas government. Meanwhile, the Israeli acting Prime Minister Ehud Olmert has confirmed that his country will resume peace talks with the Palestinians despite the fact that Hamas has ascended to power. He also confirmed that he knows how to deal with the Islamic movement and he will fight it if deemed necessary. He also announced that his country will pursue a plan of unilateral separation from the Palestinian Authority in order to establish a state with a Jewish majority.
The European Union has decided to forward 120 million euros in financial aid to the Palestinian Authority. It is confirmed that this package is for the transition of the Palestinian government prior to the formation of the new Hamas government. And when Hamas forms the new government, the EU will assess the situation accordingly.
The European Union has decided to release a financial aid package to the Palestinians, but it will not go through the new authority. This decision will not override other decisions that the EU may take after the formation of the new Palestinian government.
Washington, which has confirmed that it will also resume its financial aid to the Palestinians, expressed relief over Europe's decision of releasing the funds.
U.S. Secretary of State Rice has talked with the Europeans. As you recall, members of the Quartet panel, including the European Union, has pledged support to the Palestinians.
However, the government of the Israeli occupation has expressed disappointment over the European decision. It claimed that it was inappropriate and it came at a bad time. Hamas confirmed that this was another indication that the policy of pressure and collective punishment against the Palestinian people will not work.
This is an indication that U.S. and Israeli policy of pressure in the West to financially besiege the Palestinian people and the Hamas movement is unsuccessful.
The Palestinian president Mahmoud Abbas spoke highly of Hamas and complimented it over its compliance with the cooling-off period with the Israeli occupation. Mr. Abbas rebutted reports that he had allegedly issued a statement to a British news outlet that he intends to resign his position.
I did not say that I will step down. I was elected by the Palestinian people with a reasonable or acceptable percentage. I have disclosed my political agenda in a speech given before the Legislative Council. I will exert a tremendous amount of effort to implement this program.
Abbas's announcement coincided with a statement by the Israeli acting Prime Minister Ehud Olmert, in which he criticized his country's foreign minister Tzipi Levin for declaring that Abbas was out of the picture after Hamas has ascended to power. Olmert has confirmed that he will resume peace talks with the Palestinians, but in his own way. He vowed that he will fight Hamas if deemed necessary, and Israel will pursue a plan of unilateral separation from the Palestinian Authority, undermining any future Palestinian state.
Terror in the West Bank. We open with news of two separate attacks, one a shooting at a gas station outside the West Bank settlement of Migdalim, southeast of Nablus. An Israeli man was killed after two terrorists arrived at the gas station and shot him in the head. Security forces launched a search for the gunman who managed to flee the scene. The Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigades claim responsibility for the attack. Magen David Adom medics reported that the victim suffered critical head wounds and attempts to resuscitate him failed. Police believe he was shot at close range. However, security services are checking into the possibility that the attack may not have been carried out for nationalistic motives. And in a separate incident, an Israeli was seriously injured in a drive-by shooting in the West Bank village of Nabi Elias by Kalkilia. The man, a resident of Netanya, was standing at a local storefront when he was struck. The gunman also hit a car in which a man and a baby were sitting, but they were not injured. The Al-Aqsa Martyrs Brigade claimed responsibility for that attack as well. Today's violence follows a stabbing last night near the Gush Etzion junction in which two people were injured. Doctors today reported an improvement in the condition of the 25-year-old male victim, a resident of Kiryat Arba, who was stabbed in his stomach. They said he is now in moderate condition, while the 17-year-old female victim from the settlement of Tekoa, who was lightly injured, was described in good condition. Soldiers shot and killed the Palestinian assailant before he could attack other Israelis at the junction. Palestinians reported that the Air Force fired missiles at a car in Gaza in which a senior commander of the Islamic Jihad military wing was driving. The target was identified as 39-year-old Khalid Dakhdouf. The car was hit as it drove over a speed bump and was completely destroyed in the attack. The explosion took place on a busy street near the Palestinian Finance Ministry in Gaza City. Two other people were injured in the incident. The Islamic Jihad vowed revenge. The IDF had no immediate comment. State Controller Michael Lindenstrauss today submitted his review of acting Prime Minister Ehud Olmert's real estate deal with American millionaire Daniel Abrams. According to Lindenstrauss, Olmert acted within the framework of the law. The State Controller determined that the sale price of $2,690,000, which Olmert received for his Tel Aviv apartment, was reasonable, as is the amount Olmert pays in rent for use of the residence, and they do not demand further judicial examination. Both Defense Minister Shaul Mofaz and Public Security Minister Gideon Ezra testified today before the Knesset Foreign Affairs and Defense Committee's panel of inquiry into last month's violent evacuation of the illegal Amona outpost. IBA's Knesset Affairs correspondent Dan Diker was at the meeting and joins us today. Dan, today's session was quite stormy, wasn't it?
Some say stormy, John. Certainly it was lively. Both men offered a very spirited defense of the way the security echelon handled the Amona standoff and evacuation. Well, John, the drama today began the moment the Defense Minister, Mofaz, and Public Security Minister Ezra took their seats in the committee room. Both men appeared in place of senior IDF and police officials whom Mofaz and Ezra refused to allow to testify. This angered committee members terribly. Ezra defended the police's use of force against protesters at Amona. He charged that the clubs and horses were used as an appropriate response to what he called level 4 disturbances against security forces. Ezra added that the police decided against using tear gas for fear that protesters would have been more seriously injured. But the minister went on the attack very quickly, charging that the committee was trying to turn the police into a political punching bag. Defense Minister Shaul Mofaz, for his part, charged that the protesters, parents, teachers, and settler leaders should ask themselves why they allowed their children to take part in such violent activities against security forces following a Supreme Court order demanding the evacuation. Mofaz said he ordered a no-tolerance policy against those settlers who broke the law, and only against those settlers who broke the law. It was a claim, though, that was rejected out of hand by right-wing members of the panel.
Both lied, frankly. Mofaz said, I did not order zero tolerance against the settlers. I said zero tolerance against criminals or those who break the law. But all the soldiers and the policemen from the Supreme Command of the Central Command of Israel till the last Yassam soldier really understood that zero tolerance is against everybody that they meet in the area. And the result was 250 casualties in the emergency rooms.
Labour Party leader Amir Peretz announced today that he will meet PA Chairman Mahmoud Abbas in Ramallah tomorrow. He made the announcement to Knesset candidates comprising the party's diplomatic and security policy team. Foreign Minister Tzipi Livni left this morning for a series of meetings in Europe. Livni is expected to present her counterparts in Austria, France, and Britain with Israeli plans to monitor money transfers to the Hamas-led Palestinian government. During her stop in Paris, Livni is set to meet the family of Ilan Halimi, the French Jew killed in an anti-Semitic attack last month.
Even funeral processions were targeted by those who don't value human lives and who have no regard for the deceased. Gunmen fired on the funeral procession of our colleague Atwar Bahajat, a well-known Al-Arabiya newswoman. The procession, which was en route to the Abu Karik cemetery, came under heavy fire by the gunmen. Mr. Adel Naji, Al-Sumariya news channel photographer, and his driver, Yasser Ibrahim, were covering the procession when the incident took place. They took cover behind a pile of concrete until more police deployment arrived at the scene. 2 security officers guarding the procession were killed and several others were injured as a result of this attack. Details are in the following report by Rula Al-Tanir.
ذكرت قناة تلفزيون العربية الفضائية.
According to the Al-Arabiya satellite television channel and the Iraqi police, at least 3 officers from the Iraqi security forces were killed in an attack on the funeral procession of Atwar Bahjat, the Al-Arabiya channel correspondent, and 2 of her colleagues. Armed men using machine guns ambushed the funeral procession west of the Iraqi capital and opened fire at mourners, killing 2 people and injuring 4 others. As the procession returned from the cemetery, a roadside bomb hit an Iraqi escort vehicle, killing 2 soldiers. According to an Al-Arabiya television correspondent, the Iraqi security forces protecting the procession took control of the situation after the first gunfire incident. The reporter confirmed that the gunmen surrounded the mourners, including politicians and journalists, during the funeral procession. Atwar Bahjat, a well-known Iraqi news correspondent, and 2 of her colleagues were kidnapped and killed after covering the bombing of the Golden Dome Shiite shrine in Samarra last Wednesday.
قبة المزار في سمراء يوم الأربعاء الماضي.
وننهي مدار اليوم من نيويورك التي عاشت ليلة.
New York experienced an Arabian night, more specifically a Palestinian night, with melodious songs and musical pieces that were presented by the Palestinian Eastern Music Band, belonging to the Edward Institute for Music. The Palestinian group is making a tour of some American cities in a campaign to raise funds for refugees in the Middle East.
اللاجئين في منطقة الشرق الأوسط.
في الوقت الذي تضغط فيه الإدارة الأمريكية على الفلسطينيين بعد أن اختاروا في انتخابات حرة.
As the American administration is pressuring the Palestinians for having chosen the Hamas movement for leadership in fair and transparent legislative elections, some Americans enjoyed music and Palestinian melodies that were presented by the Palestinian Eastern Band at a theater in New York University. The audience had notable reactions to the pieces being played by the group that belongs to the Edward Said Institute for Music. The members themselves say that Palestinians are also good at holding musical instruments and not just holding guns and throwing stones.
آلات موسيقية ولا يتفوق فقط في حمل البنادق ورمي الحجارة.
الغرب لما نقول فلسطيني دغري بيجي على الذهن.
When they hear the word Palestinian, the West immediately thinks about someone holding a gun, fighting or defending or whatever. But there is also another side. Of course, the Palestinians have the right to hold a gun and defend their rights, demanding freedom. This is legitimate. But we also have another message that is very important. That message is that the Palestinian people also feel, think, produce, and create in the field of art and outside of art.
بفكر وبينتج وبيبدع بالفنون وبغير الفنون.
جولة فرقة الموسيقى.
This Palestinian Eastern Band tour of America comes in the framework of a campaign to raise donations sponsored by the American Organization for Refugees in the Middle East. The tour will make stops in Washington, New York, and Philadelphia. Members will also participate in an artist education seminar to teach about Eastern music for interested Americans who discovered through this session and the Palestinian Eastern Band shows the Arabic musical notes of maqam.
الموسيقى العربية.
الموسيقى العربية مبنية على
Arabic music is based on maqam and composed based on these notes. This is the main difference between Arabic music and Western music. Also, the slow rhythm known as taqsim in Arabic music, whether at the beginning or the middle of the piece, is an essential and unique aspect of this music.
أساسي ومتميز من هذه الموسيقى.
وقد قدمت الفرقة الفلسطينية مزيجا من الموسيقى العربية الكلاسيكية منها والمعاصرة.
The Palestinian band presented a mixture of Arabic music, both classical and contemporary. Members of the band presented solo performances highlighting their unique compositions in addition to singing religious and popular historical Arabic songs. The band includes 6 musicians. Most of them are either students or teachers at the National Palestinian Musical Institute, which carries the name Edward Said Institute for Music since 2003, in honor of the late Palestinian thinker who achieved fame in America and the West. He is one of the greatest of Arab thinkers who has the most understanding of Western thinking, which was evident in his many books in comparative literature and political and social science. The Palestinian band seeks to extend a bridge of music to an American audience after it became famous in Palestine and the Arab region and Europe. The band hopes to complete the message that was initiated by earlier generations of Palestinian thinkers and writers in Palestine or in exile.
كما في المهجر.
A 10-day Hakawati, or storytelling festival, concluded in Beirut over the weekend. The festival, which has been running for 7 consecutive years, attracts Hukawatis from around the world.
For the last 7 years, the International Hakawatis Festival has introduced Lebanese society to the Western Hakawati culture. During the 10-day festival, Lebanese audiences have enjoyed tales from storytellers from France, Switzerland, America, Canada, and Lebanon. The Lebanese storyteller and Hakawati festival organizer Jihad Darwish said, "This festival is to show people that a storyteller doesn't have a standard look. The storytellers are not as imagined, with a tarbouch on his head, with a stick in his hand and a water jar beside him." Canadian storyteller Michel Faubert says that storytelling is becoming more and more popular as an art form in Canada, and says that with the quality of the audience in Beirut, he hopes the same will happen in the Middle East.
We were many storytellers from different styles, and people were really generous in their listening and were there to discover the universe, the imaginary of each storyteller, and I really appreciate myself.
With each storyteller comes tales of various countries, transporting the audience into their world.
The views expressed on Mosaic are not those of Link TV or its sponsors, but of the broadcasters themselves. Mosaic is made possible by a grant from the John S. and James L. Knight Foundation, which promotes journalism excellence worldwide and invests in the vitality of 26 U.S. communities, and the William and Flora Hewlett Foundation. Additional support is provided by the Firedoll Foundation and Henry and Virgilia Dakin.